Hello, all, and thank you for joining us today. I have the privilege and the pleasure of having a conversation with Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, or as he would like to be called, Dave. And this is amongst one of the series that we talk about when we are discussing physician burnout, nurses burnout, healthcare executive burnout. And what he brings to us is a tremendous amount of expertise. But I will start first by having him introduce himself. So Dave, it's all yours.
Thanks a lot. Hey, folks, I'm Dave Grossman, honored to be on board. I retired in the Army in 1997. 95, my first book on killing came out. Been a paratrooper, Army Ranger, West Point psychology professor, professor of military science. Started life as a boot private and a buck sergeant. But the book on killing came out in 95. And it's studying the act of killing and lawful killing, the military and law enforcement. And I want to lay a foundation right there to help you understand how desperately bad the situation is before even going into the pandemic. The thing to realize is people point some horrible crime. They say, that proves we're all killers. That's an outlier. It's literally 1 in a million. You explain to me the 99.9% of our citizens go a lifetime, never killed anybody or even seriously tried to. Divorce, infidelity, layoff, traffic accidents, in a lifetime of provocation, less than 1 in 1,000 citizens will even seriously attempt to take a human life. In most healthy people, there's a resistance to killing. The military find out about this. This book, 500,000 copies sold worldwide, just in the English language, translated 8 languages, Marine Corps commandants required reading. And the thing to realize is the military slammed into this resistance to violence. And we realized we had to make killing a conditioned response, pop-up target, stimulus response, and it worked. And oh, by the way, the video games are doing the exact same thing to our kids. So let's lay a foundation there. I train cops in all 50 states. I believe I'm the only law enforcement trainer in America, certified in all 50 states, one time or another. Every federal agency. I've also presented over 100 universities and colleges. I've presented at national, international psych conferences. I had the honor to do Department of Defense-wide psychiatric grand rounds. It was piped out over 100 locations nationwide. And I'm laying a foundation for the psychological understanding of the mind and body and where we're at and where we're going. So let's start with this. There is, I present at colleges. I'm the guest CJ, criminal justice presenter. They have the CJ alumni, all the students, faculty, invite local police. I tell them the field of criminal justice is totally flawed. How do we measure crime? Oh, the murder rate. The murder rate completely misrepresents the situation because medical technology is saving ever more lives every day. If we had Vietnam, if we had World War II level medical technology in Afghanistan, right now we have 10 times many dead American troops. Vietnam level medical technology in Iraq, maybe 4 times many dead American troops, and the same thing is true in our streets. So we got one good data point. Right around the year 2000, a UMass Harvard study told us if we had 1970s medical technology, the murder rate would be 3 to 4 times what it is. So just between 1970 and the year 2000, 3/4 of all murders were prevented by medical technology. And in the last 2 decades, the leaps and bounds of life-saving technology is astounding. One medical trauma expert tells him he believes tourniquets alone may have cut the murder rate in half in just the last decade. Wow. 10 years ago, nobody carried a tourniquet. Now every cop has tourniquets. EMTs have tourniquets. If a cop slaps on a tourniquet, saves a life, he's prevented a murder. In these incredibly violent times, 500,000 cops on duty every day, plus EMS and civilians that carry tourniquets, if just 20, 30 cops a day slap on a tourniquet and save a life, we've cut the murder rate in half. So I want you to have a feeling for where we're at. Again, I train all my federal agencies, I train worldwide. And this is the murder rate in America, the number of people murdered. In 2006, 17,000. 2008, 16,000. 2009, 15,000. 2010, 14,000. This is medical technology doing its job. And then in 2015, 2016, on into 17, the murder rate has exploded like nothing we have ever seen in the history of our nation. How many of you knew that? Folks, I presented the American Sheriff's Association, every sheriff in America. I put that up there. How many of y'all knew that? Why wasn't that in the news? Now, the one place where it was reported, and an interesting article says the murder rate is up, but still below historical highs. And here's people, again, looking at the number of people murdered. And this increase I showed you is a little blip right there. But if we allow for medical technology, the line actually looks like this. I was invited to the White House after the Parkland School Massacre with the President's Roundtable on Violent Video Games. I was invited last August to the White House to brief the Vice President. I told him, when we talk about money, we have inflation-adjusted dollars. Over any period of time, we compare money. We're lying if we don't allow for inflation. When we talk about murders, we got to talk about medically adjusted murders. And it will absolutely transform the way we see the world. Now, this is before the coronavirus. This is before it happened. And a quick aside, all my medical folks say the guns are part of the equation. But high capacity, semi-automatic military weapons, M1 carbine, World War II, 6 million were manufactured in World War II. 20, 30 round magazines, semi-automatic military weapons, they flooded the market at the end of World War II. They were junk. Semi-automatic, high-capacity military weapons, this is not new. Something is fundamentally new. We are teaching our children to kill. The media violence, this book of mine, Assassination Generations, being used across the medical community. But what I want to do is help you understand the foundation of how bad it is, how desperately the world needs what you have to give. And now we've got the pandemic. The first step in resiliency is motivation. You must believe your sacrifice serves noble and worthy purpose. And truly, what you have done as medical health practitioners is astounding. You should take just a minute, take a deep breath, and understand that you have got us through this tragic time. And oh, by the way, the quarantine, the virus may get worse. We see Memorial Day, and 2 weeks later, we see an increase in cases of coronavirus, but we're also seeing these protests, a total breakdown of social distance, total breakdown. And there's a very good chance 2 weeks from now, we're going to see another burst of coronavirus. It may be even worse. And you are the thin line of heroes, the thin white line that holds together the fabric of our civilization, this dark and desperate and violent times. Again, the long-term solution, my book, Assassination Generation. Let's cut to the chase, the nuts and bolts we can give you right now. My book on killing came out, and I was trained in military and law enforcement worldwide, and I was working out of this book. And then I realized that for those who are in life and death situations, military and law enforcement in a lawful, legitimate situation to save lives, killing is not that big a deal. It's academic, it's important how we train people to kill, how the video game's doing the same. Part of the matter was on combat. This book is Marine Corps Commandant's required reading after almost 20 years of war, issued in the DEA Academy, and I'm so honored, is being used a lot in the medical community. Had a podcast with a British ER doc who was telling me that around the British ER community, this is required reading. So let's lay a foundation now to help you understand where we're headed. The first step in resiliency is motivation, to know your sacrifice for a noble and worthy purpose. But the second step in resiliency is to make sure your body is prepared to sustain itself throughout this dynamic. Folks, as a mental health, when I got my degree in counseling, I was West Point psych professor. Somebody comes in, and the first thing you do is ask them, when's the last time you had a good warm meal? When's the last time you had a good night's sleep? Until the body is ready, any psychological, psychiatric support accomplishes nothing until we make sure that their body's ready. And you as medical providers, you've got to sustain yourself for the long haul. And the critical component in front of us is sleep. We're in the middle of a worldwide sleep deprivation epidemic. Just Google worldwide sleep deprivation epidemic, see what comes up. And this is before the virus ever hit us. We've got cell phones and text messaging and these incredibly addictive video games. The video games give an illusion of control. They put you in a flow state. But what happens is you're just losing sleep and accomplishing nothing. And the thing to understand is this: in the U.S. Armed Forces, we study every suicide intensely. And the active duty armed forces, which is the only place that studies every suicide, calls it what it is. In the active duty, our suicides have nothing to do with combat. A non-combat vet is likely to take life as a combat vet. But a sleep-deprived soldier can be up to 5 times more likely to take their life. We're beginning to realize sleep deprivation may be one of the greatest, if not the single greatest predictor of suicide. Taking your life is not a natural act. Every living creature has a powerful drive towards self-preservation. To take your life, you have to have profoundly impaired judgment. We always knew alcohol and suicide was related. Alcohol creates impaired judgment. You make a bad decision, everybody has to rethink it. But the most pervasive form of impaired judgment is sleep deprivation. 18 hours without sleep in your impaired judgment equal to 0.08 legally drunk from alcohol. 24 hours without sleep, your impaired judgment equal to 0.10 above legally drunk. 2 nights without sleep and you are psychotic. Any graduate of Army Ranger School will tell about the hallucinations on the 3rd day without sleep. And we're in the middle of this worldwide epidemic of sleep deprivation, and it is absolutely destroying us. It's eating us alive. We can't keep operating this way. Suicides worldwide have exploded, with the exception of Russia, which led the world to bringing suicide down by strictly rationing alcohol. Suicides worldwide have exploded. Teen suicides, teenagers, 10, 11, 12-year-old teenage girls' suicide rate has tripled per capita in America in the last decade alone. Here's parenting 101 for the 21st century. When you send your kid to bed at night, take their cell phone away from them. No laptop in the room, no cell phone in the room. They got to go to the room and sleep. A cop came up to me in one of my presentations during a break. He said, I had a good girl. He said she was an A student. She said, Dad, it's embarrassing. You don't have to take my cell phone every night. You can trust me. He said, so I trusted her, let her keep her cell phone. A little while later, she took her life. He said, my little girl took her life. And we never knew the hell she was living in until we looked at the text messages on her cell phone. Night after night of ceaseless, relentless, vicious bullying. And I understood then my little girl was bullied to death. What I didn't understand until now, she was sleep deprived, tortured, and tormented to death in front of my eyes, and I let it happen. He said, I can't ignore that text message in the middle of the night. How can we expect our kids to? He said, the one thing on earth I could have done for my little girl was take her cell phone every night, let her turn off all the bad stuff in this world. Folks, I cannot emphasize this. We are in the middle of this epidemic, and the medical provider to sustain ourselves, this is where we've got to make the most difference. Sleep deprivation is also a major factor in traffic deaths. And worldwide, traffic deaths have exploded. Suicides have exploded. What is the new factor? And the third major killer of our kids, the third major killer of the deaths of despair is drug overdoses. And why opiates? Of all the drugs, that prescription opiates have always been there. Why are people suddenly needing opiates? Sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. Just Google again, sleep deprivation and pain. The tendons and muscles never get a chance to fully relax. Doc, I heard all the time, give me a pill to fix. You don't need a pill. You need more sleep. And you need to knock off the caffeine shortly after lunch that's stopping you from getting deep cycle sleep and letting those tendons and muscles fully relax. The 3 major dynamics worldwide have exploded. Suicide, traffic deaths, which traffic deaths brought down decade after decade, airbags, seatbelts, technology, now they're back up, and drug overdoses. What's the new factor worldwide? This epidemic of sleep deprivation, and bam, in the middle of all that, we got the quarantine and the coronavirus. And you, the thin white line, trying to hold together the tattered fabric of our civilization, saving lives. You must sustain yourself for the long haul. You must have sleep discipline. Now, airline pilots, air traffic controllers, nuclear power plant operators, tugboat operators, ferryboat operators, Amtrak engineers, and truck drivers are all required by law to get enough sleep. We got to make our kids get enough sleep. We take their cell phone, we send them to bed. Who's going to be your mommy? Who's going to make you get this sleep? Sleep deprivation creates judgment errors. When you're sleep deprived, you make mistakes. You will say things and you will do things you will regret for the rest of your life. If somebody showed up to work drunk, you'd fire him, you'd kick his ass. If he shows up to work sleep deprived, because he in social media all night long, played video games all night long, they need their tail kicked. There's nothing cute and nothing funny about showing up to work drunk. And there's nothing cute and nothing funny about showing up to work sleep deprived. Because you're playing games on social media all night. You got a sick baby at home, you have the sick baby, man, we got you covered. You frittered your time away, you fail to get sleep when you need it. You need a wake-up call. So this is the dynamic I want to spend the most time on. And I want to give you some sleep hacks you can apply immediately. And Sleep 101 begins with Nap 101. In general, anything less than 30 minutes is pretty much a waste of time. 20-minute power naps, doable, but you take some time to ramp up and ramp down. It really turns back into 30 minutes as a minimum effective nap. You're driving around the road, your head is bobbing. Take the little micro naps. I've been there, the little micro naps. You pull over, put your head down for 10 minutes. The alarm goes off, kind of a startle response. But as far as sleep deprivation goes, that 10-minute nap was a total waste of time. Put your head down for 30 minutes. The alarm goes off. You're bleary and groggy and you don't want to get up. You know why? You're asleep. It takes 30 minutes, fall a deep cycle. I don't want to get back up, get to sleep. And in general, anything less than 30 minutes is a waste of time. So that means the snooze button is not our friend. The snooze button is an evil little button that makes you relive the worst part of every day over and over again. And do some research on this. Just Google the snooze button, the snooze alarm. You get a 10-minute snooze, another snooze, a third snooze. Number one, you just threw away 30 minutes of your life. Those 3 snoozes, nobody as far as sleep goes, nobody as far as your life goes. You threw away 30 minutes of the day to trick your body going without sleep. And number 2, it's like you're trying to force your body to fall into deep cycle sleep in 10 minutes, and it can't do it. You're doing physical, psychological harm to your body with this snooze alarm, as you're trying to force your body to fall into deep cycle sleep in 10 minutes, and it can't do it. But most of all, willpower, self-control, discipline. Are you in charge of your body, or is your body in charge of you? It's the first act of every day to surrender to your body. Give a kid a marshmallow. Tell me, eat this marshmallow right now. I'll be back in 3 minutes with another one. If you don't eat it, have them both. That is the single greatest predictor of success in life. Self-discipline. You cannot increase your IQ. You cannot increase your kids' IQ. You can increase their self-discipline. And it begins every morning the alarm goes off. Muhammad Ali, boxer, champion, great champion. He said, championship began every morning the alarm went off. He hated running so bad, he put his running shoes on top of the alarm. The alarm went off, he went to hit the alarm, he grabbed his running shoes. That's champion willpower. It's the first act of every day to surrender to your body, to take charge. I'm deadly serious. The snooze button is evil. Don't ever touch it again. Next, the dark is our friend. Teach your children to sleep in the dark and teach yourself to sleep in a totally dark room. The research is there. Just do some research on it. The docs say just the glowing dial of a clock is too much. And what we got to do is make the room as dark as you can and wear a sleep mask. My Facebook page, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, Facebook page, I studied a couple of masks and told people the one I like the best. But go online, order a mask. Make the room as dark as you can and wear a sleep mask. And again, teach your children to sleep in the dark. Babies are sloshing with melatonin. Babies can sleep anywhere. By the time you become teenagers, the body produces much less melatonin. Remember, sleep deprivation's killing our kids. Drug overdoses, traffic deaths, and suicides. And make your kids get healthy sleep. Teach them to sleep in the dark, especially by the time they become teenagers. The dark is our friend. Alcohol is not our friend. And one of the great things to understand is that sleep is a biological blind spot. Our bodies don't know how to make us get enough sleep. It always happened naturally. It got dark every night. And then we invented the light bulb and the television and the video game. And suddenly we go 24/7. and sleep is a biological blind spot. One of the best tools you could possibly get is a fitness tracker. I like the Fitbit Charge 3. You download an app, you wear the fitness tracker, it will track your heart rate. Very valuable. Look through the day, see where your heart rate was. It will track your steps, your calories, and it will track your sleep and your cycles of sleep. And so pound down 3 beers and go to bed and look what it does to your sleep on that fitness tracker. You'll fall quickly into shallow sleep. You wake up a couple hours, can't get back to sleep. Nothing wrong with the nightcap. It looks like 1 beer, one alcohol on the way to bed, no big deal. Anything more than that, having a negative impact. Nicotine is not our friend. Do not wake up in the night and have a smoke. One of the dumbest things you do. It's one time to show some discipline. Now understand that caffeine can be our friend. Caffeine is a powerful drug that temporarily limits your vulnerability to minimal side effects if you're not abusing that drug on a daily basis. We're living in a world of mega doses of caffeine. So take the test, cut off all caffeine for 1 day. If you get withdrawal symptoms, you know damn well that's happened. Those are withdrawal symptoms. Headaches, shakes, digestive problems, you're shut off caffeine and get withdrawal symptoms. That is living proof you're abusing the drug. When you need it, it will not be there for you. So taper off slowly. And here's what the data is telling us. I'm a huge science geek. My favorite website is sciencedaily.com. Check it every day, year after year, through every topic. It appears that coffee and tea can be maybe the best thing we put in our body. Maybe coffee and tea is so good just because sodas are so damn bad for us. But coffee, it looks like 4 cups of coffee a day appear to be pretty good for us. Cup or 2 of coffee or tea at breakfast, cup or 2 at lunch, switch to decaf, have all you want. Then when you need it, it's there for us. Now understand a couple of things though. One of the most harmful things we could ever do is rotating shifts. Every time you rotate shifts, you're putting everybody behind the 8 ball for jet lag. You're giving everybody jet lag. It can take up to a full year to fully adapt to night shift. You must maintain as much permanence in shifts as humanly possible. And the best way to do it is bid for your shift based on seniority. You want to stay a night shift, good for you, stay on nights. You want to move to days, you've earned it. You have the seniority, move to days, it's only fair. But folks, this idea of rotating shifts, again, do some research on shift work and all the medical research. The word shift work assumes rotating shifts, and it doesn't have to. They're 2 different things. But rotating shifts takes years off people's lives. It destroys families. Families can't handle day shift. Families handle night shifts. They can't handle rotating shifts. I tell all my police departments, if you're rotating shifts, start saving money now. You're going to be sued. You're going to be successfully sued. It is one of the most irresponsible things you could possibly do. Please maintain as much stability as possible. Move to night shifts and stay there as long as you can. Limit your rotations. These are things we can control right now. Sustain yourself for the long haul. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And the critical component is sleep. And there's things you can do right now. Remember that this news alarm is not our friend. Naps 30 minutes or above. Sleep in the dark. Order a sleep mask right now. We can turn around and limit alcohol before we go to bed. No more than 1 drink. The data is there. And use caffeine effectively. And then when you need caffeine, it will be there for you in an emergency. The sodas are sugary poison. The diet sodas may be worse. And the energy drinks are condensed poison. We've been at war now for almost 20 years straight. For the first 15 years, the U.S. Armed Forces passed out energy drinks like water. They gave them to us by the pallet, we gave them to the troops. Aren't we nice guys? And then 2 major Department of Defense-wide studies on the energy drinks. And today, across the U.S. Armed Forces, for all practical purpose, there is a complete ban on energy drinks. So like cigarettes, they're bad for you. We'll never buy them for you. You're an adult, you want to buy your own, we won't stop you. But in an academic environment, the troops taking the most energy drinks were the ones with the worst grades. In a tactical environment, the one taking the most energy drinks were the ones most likely to nod off on the job. All there is in that energy drink is a mega dose of caffeine and some stuff that will make you metabolize it quickly. It will give you a 1-hour burst of physical ability and then you crash. Before a PT test, before an athletic event, 1 energy drink is not a bad idea. Any other time, it's a total waste. The second one feels good for 10 minutes, you crash. Third one feels good for 5 minutes, you crash. And all you're doing is feeding your body mega doses of caffeine and building up your tolerance to caffeine. So we lay the foundation to understand, to get our body ready. Let's move on to talk about how the body responds to a life and death event. And this comes again out of my book on combat. On my LinkedIn page, I posted a nice an ER nurse when this coronavirus began to hit. She said, I thought my experience had prepared me for this, and it didn't. It's a totally different dynamic. Across the medical community, people were recommending your book on combat. I thought, well, I'll read it and it will help me escape. It's something so totally different. It'll help me get out of what I'm doing. She said, halfway through the first chapter, I said, this guy is talking to me. This is me. And they directly apply. So let me give you some background on how the body responds to life and death event. We all know about sympathetic, parasympathetic backlash. Sympathetic, fight or flight, parasympathetic, rest and digest, also called feed and breed. When a traumatic event hits you, or a series of traumatic events hit you, you go into sympathetic nervous system arousal. Now, we want to minimize that. We want to stay in the zone. We want to keep fine motor control. We can't let ourselves get up there. We use our breathing. We use other tools. But as we get up there, there's a backlash in the opposite direction, fight or flight, and then we backlash to rest and digest or feed and breed. A lot of people talk about gorging themselves. That's a healthy response. And a lot of people, my EMS, my fire, my cops, victims of violence, talk about going home and having some very intense sex. Fight or flight, feed and breed. The body moves in that direction. I tell people nothing wrong if it doesn't happen. Nothing wrong if it does happen. But it scares people. Here they were in this amazing life and death event, and then both partners invested in intense sex. It's an affirmational life in the face of death. It's a hormonal surge. It's normal. I tell everybody, cops, EMS, and there's not a lot of perks come with this job. You find one, relax and enjoy it. Off duty, wait till you're off duty. It'll still be there. But this biological whipsaw, and in the life and death event, the things that are happening to people is tunnel vision. The vast majority experience tunnel vision. Auditory exclusion, the shots get muted. How could we have had 500 years of gunpowder combat and not let people know the shots are muted? Slow motion time is intense and it's real. People talk about seeing the bullet like paintball or airsoft. It's slow if you crack your eyes. Several occasions they walk up a point where the bullet hit. Nowhere they could have done that. They weren't tracking their eyes. Slow motion time is real. Memory gaps. Half of all trained seasoned cops have blackouts, gaps. 1 out of 5 trained seasoned cops have memory distortions. They just flat remembered something that did not happen. Very often, something revolving around their own personal failure. Now, think about these things. Tunnel vision, auditory exclusion, slow motion time, memory gaps. This meets every definition of a psychotic episode. Just those things by themselves would scare the daylights out of you. They meet every definition of a psychotic episode. And we didn't know that these things are happening and what we can do about it. But one of the critical components is a debriefing. And you got to allow time to just talk about what happened. And people will say, here's what happened. You say, I didn't remember that. That's okay. Or somebody say, I remember this. Everybody else says, no, man, that didn't happen. And you realize, okay, this is the memory distortion. I was told these things might happen. But here's the key. You expect that roller coaster ride in the event. A month later, a smell, a gunshot, something sets it off, and you go that roller coaster ride again. It is not PTSD. It's normal. How you deal with it will decide whether or not it becomes PTSD. And the tool we're going to use, we want to separate the memory from the emotions. Now, there's several tools we can use. A breathing exercise in my book on combat, square breathing, in 4, hold 4, out 4, hold 4, enormously powerful and effective, saving lives every day. But controlling your breathing is bringing the sympathetic nervous system back under conscious control. Another tool that we're finding is a swig of water. Now, when you see food, you salivate. That is a parasympathetic digestive response. When you're under stress, you get dry mouth. Sympathetic, dry mouth, parasympathetic, we salivate. So taking that swig of water in that, what I call that puppy brain, that dog brain, that midbrain in there is panicking. And taking that swig of water says, we're safe. We got time for a swig of water. The swallowing, it's a parasympathetic dynamic. Another dynamic that people use is yawning. Just yawn 4 or 5 times. You can't even say yawning without having an urge to do it. Even thinking about yawning gives you the urge to do it. And we're finding that yawning, just the 4 or 5 yawns can reset the button. A big swig of water. So I present at CISM, Critical Incident Stress Management, CISM conference every year. I'm one of the instructors there year after year. And we do a debriefing. But what we do is everybody has a bottle of water in front of them. And the moment they become emotional, as they talk about what happened, they stop, take a swig of water. And from the very beginning, they separate the memory from the emotions. So a friend of mine is one of our nation's leading therapists for federal agents, federal law enforcement agents. And I talked about the water thing, and she came back to me, and she said, 6 years of college, 14 years of practice, and that stupid bottle of water is doing more good than anything I've ever done. We sit and talk about what happened every. And the reason it works, the visual stimulus, the midbrain is busy following a visual stimulus, and the forebrain can think about what's happening without that puppy coming and peeing in your lap in the middle. We separate the memory from the emotions. Visual stimulus is a midbrain dynamic, and the forebrain can talk about it. I think that's why EMDR works, and I believe it has proven itself. It's all about separating the memory from the emotions. One last little tool. I trained a major spec ops unit a little while back. The master sergeant who was my host told me his wife was an ER psychiatrist. And she told him about something sweeping through the emergency rooms worldwide. If a crackhead or a meth head turn up the ER, you know what they do? They grab a bag of M&Ms, rip it open, shove the guy's face. Would you like some M&Ms? And completely diffuse the situation. He said, I'm your typical cynical GI. I blew it off. Yeah, sure, right, blew it off. Now, this is the kind of guy, carries a gun off duty, kind of guy we want to. High-level spec ops. And he said 2 different times, I thought I was going to have to draw my weapon and fight for our lives. Both times, my wife reaches in her purse, grabs a bag of M&Ms, rips it open, shoves the guy's face, which likes some M&Ms and completely diffuse the situation. He said, now it's one thing when a pretty girl does it. I'm still not so sure it would work for me. But understand these dynamics to pull people from fight or flight to rest and digest. Understand that natural cycle. And when things hit you that make you re-experience the event, it's normal. The goal becomes to separate the memory from the emotions. And a couple other tools I want to give you. When somebody has been in an event, physical or emotional, the first question should be, are you hurt? And if they're okay, you tell them, I am so glad you're okay. But many times they obviously are not okay. I have a little brother who is a paramedic, and he spun out with PTSD. And he told me one time, he said, I can't tell you how many people died. And the last thing I ever heard was a lie coming out of my mouth, telling them they're going to be okay. What we tell people now is you tell them the worst is over now. We're here for you. The worst is over now. Just 2 of those things ready to go. Are you hurt? If they're not hurt, I am so glad you're okay. And if they are hurt, if they're obviously hurting, if they need help, you tell them the worst is over now. We're here for you. Just having the right words at the right time. Being forewarned and forearmed how your body will respond. The breathing exercise. And again, I've got hundreds and hundreds of case studies and all kinds of crazy dynamics. I just got one 2 weeks ago. A veteran, he'd come back from Iraq. He was doing some climbing on a mountainside up on top of a glacier. He gets up in the middle of the night, completely disoriented. It's on a glacier without crampons or traction devices. It's slippery. He's disoriented. It's in the dark. And he said, I heard your voice saying, in through the nose, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out through the lips, 2, 3, 4. He said, just one cycle of breathing. I regained control, and I realized I was literally a step away from stepping off a cliff. He said, the breathing and having that tool there saved my life. I got so many like that. A lady who's being intubated, She can't talk. She can barely breathe. Her husband's right there, and she scrawls on a piece of paper, Grossman, on killing, breathe. Her husband knew what it was. They just read, or on combat, breathe. They just read the book, and he coaches her. In through the nose, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out through the lips, 2, 3, 4, and it worked. So whether you were in this life and death event, remember, you've got a tool right now. Take that deep breath in through the nose for the count of 4. And I believe the act of counting is part of the process. You know, that my dog only understands 2 things. 1, 2, many. You know, the midbrain, they can't count. My dog knows 1, 2, a whole bunch. Just the act of counting. And you breathe in through the nose, you hold for a 4 count. Out through the lips, hold for 4 count. They're teaching that to little kids now. You know, they do it. I did it with my grandkids. The kids who are having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, they say, hey, the kid will outgrow. I'm talking 3, 4 years old. Kid will outgrow it. No big deal. I'll show you something. Here's what the doc does. The doc lights a candle and holds up a scented plastic flower. My grandchild just went out and plucked a flower. Doc models a behavior. Smelling the flower. Enjoy it. Blow out the candle. Watch the smoke. Now you do it. That fast. Got a 2-year-old breathing on command. Smelling the flower. Enjoy it. Blow out the candle. Watch the smoke. Now you do it. So these are major tools. The bag of M&Ms, the swig of water, the breathing exercise. You know, and when test anxiety is when you try to take a test in an over-aroused state. Teaching kids to breathe periodically during a test is enormously powerful to teach them to regain control. So here you are, the magnificent men and women, the thin white line. It's answered the call in these desperate times. The first wave of the coronavirus, the second wave, as we say this, may be even worse. But you've got to sustain yourself for the long haul. You've got to have, first and foremost, faith in who you are and what you do. You are heroes. For the rest of your life, people will look back at this time. You are the ones who carried us through this time. You are the case study. Right now, we're looking at the 1918 virus. We're looking at the thousands of lives lost and the lessons they learned. People will look at you, your narratives, your story 100 years from now, and they will learn from it. Sustain yourself for the long haul. The sleep is so important, and have the right words to say at the right time. Doc, any things, and I turned on the fire hose here. I hope there are things in there you can find of value.
It was amazing. I mean, that was 40 minutes, 42 minutes of just you telling, sharing with so much passion, things that every one of us needs to hear. I am so appreciative of your time and all these tools that you gave us. You know, hopefully people need to understand that they are at the center of everything as far as their well-being, that they can only serve others as far as they are able to serve themselves. And what you have provided for them and for us is tremendous. And I'm going to speak for myself and then for my viewers that this is extremely helpful, very appreciative. In the last couple of minutes, I was asked, you know, we were talking about the dynamics of talking through the mask.
Yes. Oh.
And so if you have a couple of minutes notice, because most people will now, you know, they tend to, they put the mask on and then they'll start yelling so that people hear them.
Right.
And so the perception of it is not well received.
Yes.
So if you can give us like a few things of what
Right.
it entails, that will be great. And we can conclude with that.
You know, and then I got one little point if I could tie in after that. In the military, we wear protective masks, sometimes for days on end, to inoculate ourselves for attack with nerve agent and other things. We wear this gas mask, and we wear it for hours, sometimes days on end. And I was sitting up on a hillside one time as a young captain, and I got the battalion chaplain standing beside me, wearing our masks. And I talk, and what you do is you take your little radio telephone, and you put the receiver where your mouth would ordinarily go, right on the little voice emitter, just talk calmly and normal. And a superior officer, a battalion major ops officer, said, "You don't have your mask on." And I said, I've got the chaplain sitting right beside me. He'll verify. What you hear coming over that mask is not the mask, it's you. You need to calm down, talk straight into that emitter, and know that people are hearing what you say. And so we've got this dynamic. When somebody shouts at us, we respond negatively. You know, a lot of you have been in a medical environment. You're doing surgery. You've all got masks on. You don't have to shout. You can talk calmly. But understand this: what we know from scuba and from wearing masks is your facial expressions are pretty much concealed. Now recognize that you can see a lot with just the eyes. You can tell it's a smile with the eyes or not. So put that smile on there anywhere, but talk with your whole body. Now's the time to pepper cells for a good old thumbs up, for a okay. Talk with your body. This is, and I tell you, there's a lot to be said for this. You know, we teach kids, you know, thank you, and we thank you, and just talk with your body. With the dynamic of putting your hand here and bowing is just thank you, or this right there saying please, and those are gestures that just says something polite, something good. Start integrating those dynamics into your interaction. Don't let yourself shout. Don't let others shout. Tell them, I hear what you're saying. You don't need to shout. And when they calm down and talk quietly, the whole dynamic changes. Speak with your whole body. This is time for hand signals. You know, give them that thumbs up. Give them that thank you. Give them that please. And weave those things in there. When we scuba dive, when we wear gas masks, we've learned that we've got to talk with our whole body. And we've got to use these other dynamics to communicate this. These are skills that you can use. We don't realize the enormous stress people are in when they have to wear masks, and you have never done it before. So help them through these times. You're the professional. You can model it. One last thing I asked Naeem to give me a minute. One last part of resiliency is faith. And depending on your faith, whatever your faith is, you can lean on it. You can depend on it. How does the military justify chaplains in this day and age? Now, you know, part of the military's scientific tenets of the pillars of resiliency is faith. And in this hour of need, turn to your faith. Just realize that there's a reason. If you're not wired that way, there's other ways to skin that cat. My most recent book just came out on spiritual combat. And you know, if you're looking in the eyes of evil, if you see evil acts, and you don't believe, you find yourself believing in evil, but you don't believe in a force for good, that it's going to be difficult to sustain yourself in the face of evil without a force for good. So sustain yourself for the long haul. What carried our forefathers through their dark hours can carry us through these times. We have tools and we have skills that they didn't have, but also works against us, creating sleep deprivation. When they were done, they crashed. We're done. We get on social media, we play video games. We think those are going to calm us down, and they're not. And so we can learn from them, and we can apply those tools and resources across the board. And from the perspective of one of the people who just hunkered down, my business stopped. I'm not out training anybody, some podcasts. From somebody who's hunkered down to somebody who's out there putting their life on the line for us every day with all my heart and all my soul, I thank you and I honor you. I hold you up as the great heroes of this age, and you should be able to bounce your grandbabies and great-grandbabies in knee and tell them about the time when he carried us through this dark and desperate hour.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your wonderful words. Thank you for your wonderful sentiments. We appreciate you. We appreciate everything you have done. And we need people like you to continue doing what we're doing. We have learned a lot from you today, and I look forward to our next adventure.
Iron sharpens iron. Thank you, brother.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.